Thanks very much, Joe, and good morning, everybody. I'd like to give you a very warm welcome here this morning to our workshop on divesting from fossil fuels. Last June, across in the North Campus, Maynooth University, St. Patrick's College, and Trócaire organised a very successful conference on climate justice. And the subtitle of that conference was From Evidence to Action. And that really is what has brought us here this morning, because one of the key, issues that came up during that conference was the issue of divestment and the place that divestment has in bringing about a real transformation of action towards climate justice. So we are here this morning to continue that journey from evidence to action. We were, at that time, presented with a real challenge. And that challenge is a divestment challenge. But to call for divestment with any credibility, one really must be divesting. This can be a challenge for any Irish organisation that wants to go down this road. It's a challenge because of the complexity of today's financial instruments, the availability of viable alternative investment opportunities, and because the idea runs counter to current investment orthodoxy. I was at a very interesting small gathering last night with many of the speakers that you'll be hearing today. So having heard all of those people, I would slightly modify that. I think change is coming. Change certainly has come to many corners and places around the globe in the investment industry, and I think it is very rapidly coming to this country as well. We have recently begun a dialogue with a view to divesting Trócaire's pension scheme from fossil fuels. That is a journey. So that is a journey, and we're at a relatively early stage, but I am extremely hopeful that we will be able to deliver on that. So, why divestment and why now? The Paris Agreement is a very important step forward. It has clearly laid the foundations for progress on delivering, on controlling temperature increases to below 2 degrees. But there is a bit of a perception out there that, well, that is over, that's all done, and we can relax, climate is sorted, and somebody will, at the end of the day, look after it, probably governments. The science is clear, but without increased ambition and early action, we will not achieve the temperature goals which were set out in the Paris Agreement. Climate change, we all know, is perhaps the greatest injustice of our time. And it is clearly, and we know this as Trocaire in our own work, a multiplier of vulnerability and inequality. We see that right around the world. Just as an example, 88 Ethiopians have the same greenhouse gas emissions as one Irish person. So that in itself is quite an extraordinary figure, but it encapsulates the problem and the dilemma which we face. So how the gap between rhetoric and action is bridged is largely up to individuals, groups, organisations and institutions, such as those of us who are gathered here today. In Laudato Si', Pope Francis says that civil society must put pressure on governments for change, including the need to replace fossil fuels without delay. The fossil fuel industry spends millions on lobbying to delay and dilute climate action at all levels. This is in stark contrast to the lack of voice and the lack of power of those most affected by and least responsible for climate change. So divestment is a socially motivated act. It sends a powerful signal to governments, institutions, and society. But more and more, it is also a financially responsible act, as no one wants to have their assets stranded in a vulnerable commodity. And again, at that gathering last night, somebody said, ultimately, it's about greed, not polar bears. So you can take whichever side of that you wish. But there is obviously a moral and an ethical component to it, and there is also a financial responsibility element to it. All you have to do is look at recent statements and actions from the Rockefeller Foundation, the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, AXA, the Guardian newspaper, and many others. So we hope that by meeting here today and sharing the significant insights and knowledge which you have, we can grow a stronger divestment movement in Ireland. So I look forward to a fascinating and productive discussion. You're all very welcome once again, and thank you very much, Joe.